Well, I am back and almost too afraid to speak in case I get that. I had like mirrors and mirrors of my own voice coming back at me. I'm not sure if you could hear that. So we're back on again, and I think you can hear me there is fine. If anyone's there, let me know if you can. At this stage, it seems to be okay. Sorry about that. I had to cut out because, yeah, sorry about that. I had to cut out because my voice was echoing and echoing and echoing, and it was like an echo chamber, which kind of suits the scene really. Anyway, I'll start again. Welcome back to the Astral Vortex. I did miss last week because I just wasn't here, and this week, what I want to talk about is the kind of things that actually happen to you when you do go astral. Because a lot of people wonder about the actual experience. Oh, I'm back. I'm back now. How are you? Everything's fine. Oh, good. Good to hear, Celestial. I hear. Emma, how are you? Yeah. Oh, you can hear me fine. Good. Yeah, for some reason the audio was just echoing, and I could hear myself speak a million times, which is a funny thing because often in the astral you can hear your own voice speaking, and that's your higher self. So this week, it's good to see you, but I just want to chat about the kinds of experiences you have in the astral because it's not all like a lot of it's quite homely. Like as you can see behind me, this setting that's deliberate. You can see the wooden table behind there, and early on in my astral career, one of the places I went to, it was like a Welsh medieval inn. It actually was. They call this place in the astral, well, the beings who were there called it Gwyneth. And I've mentioned this before in other broadcasts, but what I googled was that Gwyneth, spelled EDD at the end rather than Gwyneth as in Gwyneth Paltrow, was actually like a Welsh place of in medieval times of some mystical significance. So I found myself once literally in a inn like the scene I'm in now. It was a very cozy place, lots of stone, lots of wood, sitting at a table. And that was where I first met my guides, and they were sitting there and they kept pulling me back to the same place again and again. And they were telling me about myself and explaining, the 7 different worlds and all this kind of stuff. It was really bizarre. But the main thing was like I was often fixated with the background because it was, where I actually was, the scene of where I was. So because it was, a lot of people think the astral was kind of be scary and um, and like you're just going to be in spacey kind of scenes, and not at all. Often you're in these kind of cozy situations. I've often found like the vibe of the astral. If I get into the vibe of the experiences, generally, um, it's one of absolute clarity. Like you feel kind of cozy because it's a little bit like in 3D. If you're somewhere where you're really focused, and where you're really present and you feel really good, like you feel really good, you're very present with yourself. Emma's got another comment there. Just still a new topic for me, so I just need to see what I can pick up. Absolutely, which everyone does, and I think that what I'm trying to do is, demystifying the whole astral experience, because a lot of people have these notions that it's just only kind of scary, sort of whack you in the face, kind of strange, interdimensional stuff. Whereas interdimensional stuff doesn't always have to be that strange. Um, that's interesting. I just disappeared and came back again. That's interesting, isn't it? Which kind of, is fitting for the astral. But as I was saying, this particular scene reminded me of the first place I met my guides, and it was like an old pub. It was more medieval looking than the one you see there, but I remember there was beautiful big table behind, as you can see, and I was sitting there with a guy and a woman. They were telling me all about myself, and it was very, very, very real and very touchable, very cozy. And as I was saying, that the vibe you get off in the astral is that you're just so present there that you feel really good. It's like, when you're meeting friends and you're just entirely there. You're not sort of thinking about something else or worrying about something, and you just feel really good. It sounds a bit lame saying it that way, but that is the general vibe you have in the astral, and that's often what keeps you kind of from freaking out because you realize that it's not a normal 3D experience. You know that your physical body is sleeping in bed. In this particular scene, early on, when I met my guides, I literally forced myself into my waking state. I've just disappeared again. Then I'm sure I'll be back. I'm not sure what's going on there. Well, that's what I did. I actually literally pulled myself back into my bed, and I was awake. And then as soon as I closed my eyes, they pulled me back into this scene again. And the funny thing is, in the astral, I don't have a green screen, but this is kind of fitting because in the astral, your hands do get a bit blurry. You can see there that they look a bit blurry sometimes. It kind of suits the astral scene. And I was brought back a few times to this same scene of this medieval kind of pub, kind of inn where these two beings who called themselves my guides were psychoanalyzing me and telling me all about myself and they were basically proving to me that this was a real thing because I wasn't into the new age scene. I wasn't, it really was bizarre for me to be um, like kidnapped when I was asleep into these places. And as I said, it was great. I mean, because it was so enjoyable and so real and it was so focused, so much more than a dream. Felt more real than this reality. And that was basically why the whole astral experience hijacked my life from being a musician and doing what I do now. Like I would not have picked that road for me, but I just couldn't let the whole thing go. Other experiences you have, I'll probably just keep that background for now because it's a bit tricky changing backgrounds. Plus, I don't know how to do it that well. Some other interesting situations I found myself in the astral are that, like I mentioned in the description of this particular YouTube video, if you picked it up on YouTube, um, was that like once I just often you just go into a space that's called the void where there's just kind of nothing there, um, and you're in kind of just a dark nothing space. And I found myself in this so-called void. So I felt even just talking about it can also aid you in the experience. But I found myself just this feeling of moving out of my physical body, and then I'm in front of me in this kind of void is this guy he's got his eyes down and it was so real and he's chanting and I get the feeling it's in France and it feels like old France, and he's chanting like he's a monk. He's in monk garb, and he's chanting these beautiful like a quasi song, a little bit like if you've ever heard Gregorian chant, that kind of thing. And it's in French. You just know in the astral. I have the feeling it's there. My hands here, they look a bit webbed again, like in the astral. He's chanting in this sort of like old French, and it's just beautiful. And because I'm in the astral, I'm just watching this guy. He's in front of me, directly in front of me, hyper real. And when I say hyper real, you can literally feel the vibrations of this voice. And I'm thinking, can this guy see me? Like, I know I've been astral a fair bit before, but can this guy, does he know I'm there? Does he know I'm watching him? And then he's chanting away kind of these mantras or chanting. I didn't even know exactly what it meant. And then at the end, he just sort of looked up at me and met my eyes. And it was just like, whoa, like this transfer of energy. It's not an intellectual thing, but it's like something, you remember something on a soul level. It's like, it's a part of you. What I realized about the astral, what I've realized is that the astral is showing you that we are actually not separate, and that all of these new age cliches come true. You actually experience this oneness with everything. So I guess him chanting into my field and then looking in my eyes, there was this connection, and maybe he was. It doesn't really matter, but maybe he was an aspect of me in a past life or not. I had the feeling then it was like a teacher, whatever he was doing, just the vibrations came in. So you'll often have, most of the experiences you have in the astral are non-intellectual. They're often a little bit, how do I say, cryptic, but they're always beautiful and generally ecstatic. So, and then to go, and this is just something like any of you can share your experiences with me as we get along. But like another great experience I had that I don't talk about much. I'm going out of body, and I go, I'm flying away from the earth, and you often look back at the earth, and you sense the earth as kind of an entity in itself. You actually sense the earth as a being, which is pretty cool. It is magical, Emma. It really is the definition of magic, um, and that kind of old meaning of the word magic. That it's something that you can actually experience, and it's transformative. And so I'm blasting away from Earth, and I get to a place, and I find myself just moving in the physical cosmos, and I'll get into the different ways of moving around in the astral. What I often call real-time astral is where you're kind of like, a ghost in this, like fourth dimensional, where you're basically moving through what looks like the normal 3D world, but you can't be seen. And things are slightly different. There's often anomalies, things like that. That's what I call real-time astral. Some people call it fourth dimension. I just call it real-time astral because it feels like you're in this time. Anyway, I'm blasting out of the Earth in what I call real-time astral because I'm moving away from the Earth. I'm not just sliding into another dimension. And then I come across, after a time, it's like the asteroid belt around the planet. So I'm just stopped, like all of a sudden. Often in the asteroid, you're just shown things, and I'm just stopped inside the asteroid belt, and it's a very real thing. Like around the planet, it's not just a belt like a circle; it's a dome. And what struck me was we have this dome of protection. So basically, anything like really big coming through is going to hit this belt and probably get broken up a little bit. It is a defensive kind of mechanism around the planet. Anyway, so I get to this asteroid belt, and they're sort of big boulder-like meteor objects, but they're all moving together. It's quite bizarre. And I see these triangular-shaped spaceships or space or craft of some kind. They're equilateral triangle, and they're ships. They're metallic and they're moving, and they're on this side of the belt. And I'm thinking, well, why are they on this side of the belt? Are they protecting us from? So they're feeling okay. I so often in the astral, I'm shown and told that we are protected, and often, there are often certain agendas to keep us in fear. And one thing you've got to know is that Earth is actually being watched and is protected by certain beings that are non-human. So there are rules out there. There are, just as when you are doing things in the astral, there are what I call them guardians of the astral. This is a very real thing. So after a while, I feel I don't need to protect myself so much because I know it is a protective state to be in. But that's something you have to experience for yourself. Anyway, I'm watching these ships on the inside of the asteroid belt, and then I'm zooming with my vision beyond the asteroid belt, and I see this massive ship. It's like a big white, almost a whale kind of ship. It's kind of roundish and has a big bulk at one end, and it's floating past. And I zoom in on this thing, and in the astral, you can just zoom and you're kind of there. And it's got this kind of stenciled black writing on it, similar to perhaps certain military writing you might see on Earth. And in an instant, as I said, I'm not particularly at this stage, I wasn't so much a New Ager kind of thing, but in an instant, I knew that this was the Galactic Federation. It was a Galactic Federation ship. And I got so excited when I saw this because it was a vast ship moving just the other side of the asteroid belt and very much in kind of protection mode, this kind of thing. I had a feeling all these ships are in service of the 3D human experience, as in they're protecting our planet from the possibility of any kind of invasion that would not be good for our species. Anyway, as I kind of came to, because I got quite excited seeing this big ship, and as I sort of pulled myself out, I found that often what happens in the astral, there's a telepathy, and often you find you're posing a question to something. So obviously I was there. I was flown there. I mean, I just wanted to leave the Earth when I got out of body. So obviously, I was flown to that area in the asteroid belt, and the question that kind of emanated from me as I was pulling out of the experience was, why is this interplanetary? This is as in the Galactic Federation. Like, why is this collective not known to us, as in humanity, as a whole, as in the general population? And as I'm pulling back, I hear a voice, and it kind of came through. Often they come through like through some kind of resonator. So it's sort of, you feel it kind of coming from another language being translated into your language, kind of in your crown structure. It's like we have technology within our aura. We actually have technology in our aura, which is interesting. And the words that came to me were, because you continue to kill your own. It was very clear. And so I got this very clear message, and I woke up and thought, okay, that's interesting. So um, as a species, we continue to kill our own, and that is somehow some kind of barrier to us having the knowledge that there are these, intergalactic um, brothers and sisters. So there are certain rules, and it's like that once we've evolved, perhaps beyond war. I had the feeling it was more in terms of war, um, because this is a government driven or agenda driven thing, or economic driven thing. So we're clearly at a state of evolution that we haven't. We're not privy to recognize that we are part of this galactic federation, or that this galactic federation is a possibility for us. So that was a really fascinating one. Nitro, how are you? Greg, is it normal for your emotions to be more raw when out of body? Meaning, are you inclined to get frightened? Yeah, look, yes and no. It's a good point. In the beginning, yes. But you are aided. Like what happened with me in the beginning was this: when this light first came to me, and it was like all these triangles of bright white light came into my forehead, and it woke me up, but it also came into my heart. So I was kind of helped out, and it was a very loving energy that took me down a wormhole to that was my first experience, to an alien planet, to a non-human planet that was very modern, very high tech, very real. And I knew in that moment that there were others, even though I hadn't consciously posed that question before, but it must have been in my aura. So what happens when you go in the astral? You have certain question marks within your field, and they'll be answered. But also, if your emotional state is, look, as you say, Nitro, if you're raw, if you have certain, like I've become less charged through having all of these experiences, I believe, and probably a little bit more even keeled. I would have been less even keeled earlier in my life. So I guess I've learned, not to be a zombie, but I am, I guess you could say, less emotional on certain levels, and look, I have been shown in the astral that the astral body, that the emotional bodies of humans are the things that are limiting us, which is interesting, isn't it? When I say emotional bodies, I say these bodies that flare into ignition very easily. So, I mean, there are so many ways of describing this, but I've found to get my emotions under check in 3D definitely help the astral experience, and vice versa. So it's good to I mean, it did for me. The whole thing, astral experience, did the beginnings of it coincided with me going for the first time in my life to a what do you call, a psychotherapist. I was living in Austria, and I come through a really, I mean, I come through a massive breakup at the time, and I kind of, even though it was my decision to leave my ex, because it was a very volatile relationship, to be honest, I felt really upset. I remember feeling really upset. It just triggered something within me. I just felt really. I remember thinking, I don't speak about this that much really, but I did go to see someone, and because she had this meditation group, and she was really nice, and someone said you should go and see her. And I'd never gone for any kind of help like that before, and I think that did help things. So it looking back, I guess it did coincide with me for the first time looking into myself and looking at certain patterns in relationships, why I was bringing them up, and how I felt out of control. So I guess it's all part of the same thing, isn't it? So it is a good question there, Nacho. And then Emma's just saying here, exciting to see we need to ascend higher first. Yeah, I think, I've just disappeared again. I'll probably come back. I think I'll come back. Am I back? If I don't come back soon, I'll just change my camera. So I have disappeared there, haven't I? But I will come back. I am here. That is curious. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the camera, guys. And for some reason, this camera cuts out. There I am back again with a slightly different camera. Yeah. Oh, that's okay, isn't it? You can still see me okay. Sorry about that. It happens sometimes. I don't know what's going on there. Quite odd. Yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, what was I saying? I think that's tied with what we're talking about. The fact that I often forget what I'm saying. I'm just, I'm just being in the present moment. We're talking about this notion of, looking into oneself, and that was when I did first. The only time I really got into a bit of psychotherapy and just looking at certain patterns that were going on. So I think it definitely helped, and was definitely something to do with. I'm just going to turn this other camera off that doesn't work because I feel like it's looking at me. I don't want to be looked at by the other camera. That's just me. So that particular experience with the so-called Galactic Federation was fascinating because there was the feeling. First of all, it said that you do key yourself, and I guess as a kid, I having an Irish dad who was very very triggered by the whole. He was very pro IRA and very growing up and very triggered by the whole English occupation of Ireland and stuff. So I remember being constantly being shown, these street battles on TV, on the news, growing up, and I remember being very upset by the notion of war and things like this. So, as a kid, I always stood outside of that experience and realized that something was very wrong with the human race in that way. So, I guess hearing that particular being on those ships telling me that there was that the Galactic Federation was not known to humanity because we continued to kill our own, was also bolstering that view, probably personally, that I hadn't really thought about, but as a kid I had. But also, more importantly, all these astral experiences made me realize we're not alone. I've met so many aliens, met so many humanoid beings who are not humans. Everything's telepathic, which is very simple. You don't force words out. You don't look for words like we do. So I found in this reality, what it's taught me is probably to be more passive. I don't offer my opinion unless I feel drawn to do it. So I guess on many levels, I have become, going back to what Nitro said before, that I probably become less reactive emotionally, which does help. So they're those kind of experiences. So I've said that I've met my guides in like this medieval inn that I'm sitting in right now, in virtual. That's one of the beautiful places that I first went to when I met my guides, and I didn't believe in guides. I didn't ask to meet my guides. I was just taken there. I was taken repeatedly, and I would wake up, force myself awake. I'd be taken back, force myself awake. So I was literally taken out of body when I was still awake. But generally, you have to have your eyes closed. There seems to be a good agreement there that if a human's eyes are open, don't go. And when you're in two places at once, it can be confusing. Which I've had sometimes if I force myself awake when an astral experience is happening. But generally, you're in one or the other. What marks the astral is that you know that your physical body is sleeping. You know that it's safe. And also the astral experience is more real. So that experience, I mentioned also that I'm getting a massive high frequency buzzing in my ears, and that's generally a sign that astral things are afoot. So if you ever hear really high pitched frequencies, particularly at night, um, if you fall asleep on your back and tune into those frequencies, it can often take you astral just while that's going on. Generally, it means that something's going on. And that ship, the beautiful ship out there, I mentioned those two experiences, and that French monk who was chanting these incredible things. And look, another experience I've had once when taken into the void, which is this kind of um, yeah, harsh reality for a child. Sure, sure. Look, what's interesting is, and getting onto that subject once I give emotions, like what's been proven, it seems a lot of people who have near-death experiences, or who are more likely to have these experiences and astral experiences, are people who, as a child, had kind of reasonably traumatic circumstances in their life, which I did. But fortunately, I was always a happy kid, and I always knew that it kind of wasn't real. So that probably set me up for these experiences. A part of me had that spiritual understanding as a kid. I did stand outside of the human drama and probably would have been seen as slightly autistic growing up, but we didn't have that label. So it was a harsh reality, but that's probably what attracted me to these magical things when they started happening. It was just to realize that this reality isn't isn't the be all end all, and but I would not have known that had I not been taken out of body. Now, yeah, in terms of different experiences, so often you do go into the void when you're in the astral. Um, and one time I'm drifting in the void, which is the nothingness, like just a dark space, which can sound rather intimidating if you've never been astral, like this dark space, because we're programmed that the dark is scary, which it is when you're a kid. Um, so I'm in this nothingness and I hear this phenomenal aum, and that was a beautiful experience. It was like this very low, I mentioned it a lot, but this very low aum, A-U-M, low male voice, just like a massive gong, almost metallic male voice, just resonating all through me. And at the time, I was kind of freaked out, thinking, "Well, this is full on. Should I escape?" Then I thought, "No, I'll just let it resonate through me." And I think that it took me years to Google the Aum, but apparently the Aum represents um, the first sound that brought about the manifest cosmos. So when you actually experience that, what I realized I was doing was I was tapping into the Akashic records, because the astral, really, that's the place of the Akashic records. So, and it was a beautiful experience to the Om, and I could easily have just escaped that and not heard that and not felt it. So it's kind of like it reminded my cells of what I am. And that notion of I am that I am, I'm simply the cosmos. When you feel that on a very cellular level, you kind of realize that there's nothing external to strive for. So this sense of trust and or what's the word I'm looking for? Where you just let go. There is a word I'm looking for, but it really becomes profound because you know that there are other machinations going on in the cosmos. It's not just as it looks. It's not just we do something, you get money, you buy that, and that helps you live. I mean, this is a bizarrely transactional way of looking at life. And if life is the only thing we know as conscious beings, then most people see this 3D reality as being determined by action, reaction. So that's what we call the karmic agenda, which drives 3D. But when you realize that that's not real, it releases you from judgment. So when you move into non-judgment, I guess, then I think you're shown more things. So a lot of this stuff is about non-judgment. But hearing that Om was magnificent, and it also reminds me of oh yeah, I was telling you before, another great experience you can often have, and these are these interplanetary kind of things where you pop up on different planets. That's why. So the astral body. What I learned was the astral body means star body. So astral. The reason they call it astral, it's been called astral for a long time. The astral body comes from the Latin word astra, meaning star. So we have these so-called star bodies that are within our fields, and they're designed to navigate the cosmos. And so, what does cosmos mean? That can mean time and space. And what I found is you can do both. You can move out of time. That's why you feel so present and why it feels so ecstatic, and you just really enjoy being there, because it's like when you are with very good friends in a very good, environment, and you're just sort of totally present, and you feel very content because you sort of forget yourself. It's the same in the astral. You kind of realize you're non-local. You sort of lose that sense of the physical clay, and there is no sense of time, and there is actually no time there. It's just you're entering a place where everything has happened, so you can hit the past, future, and events. And there's so much we could talk about, but it feels very blissful. And so often these planetary situations, and often people think in the astral you're only going to go to different planets and stuff and aliens. That's not true. But one particular beautiful kind of planetary situation, I found myself on the surface of kind of this small little stony planet with the horizon not far from me, big red moon above me to my right, another moon in the distance, very real. I could see the horizon just over. And there I was kind of moved to meditate for the first time in the astral. So to meditate in the astral is kind of the highest form of awareness. It's just the most ecstatic form of awareness. So I remember closing my eyes and just sort of tuning in to nothing. I had nothing on my mind. And in the astral, you really can feel totally unencumbered. So you feel gloriously present. And as I closed my eyes there, on this little planet, I experienced what in shamanic circles they would call kind of mass soul retrieval. I experienced all these aspects of myself that I thought I didn't realize I lived in the past. But what I was kind of privy to there was that when we have major traumatic events, this can be major resentment or embarrassment as a teenager. So when I say major traumatic events, just a big emotional kind of landmark events in our life, particularly when growing up, going through adolescence, through childhood, we often leave a part of ourselves back there. It's like an echo that's caught, frozen in time. So in this particular experience, I'm meditating, and I just had this phenomenal influx of energy, of my soul energies from this lifetime, maybe from other lifetimes, I don't know. And it was the tremendous feeling that every kind of dead end in my life, every so-called bad decision wasn't in fact a dead end, wasn't in fact a bad decision. Everything that led me to that point right there on that planet right then, meditating. And I knew that everything, because you're in such a perfect state, you feel that you're in a state of perfection in the astral. You feel non-lacking. And it's very hard to translate that into human terms, because in the human, we often feel we're not good enough on some level. So I had this absolute feeling of everything is exactly how it should be. And in many ways, it was ownership of that moment, because if you feel that that was a wrong decision, whatever that was then, or a bad emotion, and that made you not the right person to be, or you took the wrong career path, whatever, then that's not owning your nowness. Like you're right now, you're sitting there looking at this, looking at a computer or phone. So you are actually there right now. So if we see the universe as perfect, and of course we are parts of the universe, we are the universe, incarnate human form, that would be denying, therefore, that you are there right now, because you are actually there right now. So it sounds like a conundrum and a bit like I'm playing a trick with myself, but in the astral, it was this incredible realization that everything was exactly as it should be. And when you realize that in the astral, this feeling that nothing to strive for, nothing external, I've missed nothing, there's nothing extra I've got to do. I don't know. It was profound. It was so profound. I can't translate it into human terms because we have no equivalent in human terms. We can't talk in such, states as perfection. Because, in human terms, we don't really feel that. So simplistically, what I've learned, and with my Reiki as well, is that I believe we're here in human form to experience self-love, self-acceptance. As simplistic as that sounds, and as obvious as that sounds, it was very, very clear to me that it's all about self-love, because in the end, we're it. Everyone around you is you. Everyone, we are the cosmos. There's no separation. So when you actually feel that, it'll hijack your life, and it hijacked my life because I thought I was pretty happy being a classical musician. What I found was having these experiences. All of a sudden, I became profoundly authentic, so I couldn't play politics. And in the world of music, there's a lot of politics, and I found myself just inadvertently saying the wrong thing to the wrong people so often. I could see a pattern, and people were saying, "Greg, that's an important person. You shouldn't have said that." And I was just thinking, I don't care. So in that way, it kind of became belligerent. I became non-employable, which is not bad. Nitro, something else here. I'm probably going on a tangent, but maybe that's not so bad. Now, the body been able to. Have you been to the Antarctic? Not as such, and I'd like to. I know that it's a really good point. Um, Not the Antarctic. No, it's something. Maybe I'll set up a trip. I'd say I've put out little feelings toward the Antarctic, and there seems to be a bit of protection around it. But that's a really good idea. What I've found is when you get a group of people together and you set up some kind of astral talk, you get more energy to, like a drill, to break through what is protecting. At the moment, I'm looking into the pyramid situation to see when, how, and why exactly the pyramids were built, because of all this stuff that's going on. But the Antarctic is something I'd like to check out, because it is pretty bizarre if you think of it. How we, when I've gone up out of the planet, it is interesting the fact that, um, like, name a mountain range in the Antarctic. Like, we don't know, do we? Like, why are we not why are we not privy to these things? Like, we know so little, and it is bizarre, the secrecy that is around that place. So I'd say there would be a protective energy, as there are around certain institutions. Like, I probably mentioned to some of you before. One. Oh, g'day, Kasan, from Sri Lanka. How are you? Nice to see you, Kasun. Thanks for joining. But we're just talking about astral experiences, the kind of different things you can have. Once during the G20, I mentioned to probably a few of you realize, when all the governments came to Brisbane. I was living in Brisbane. I went into my astral chair. I got this zero gravity chair, and I just started to meditate to feel into the astral. And I sort of, basically, I'm meditating until my body falls asleep, and then I can go out. Yeah, that's basically what you're doing. I did that, and then all of a sudden, all around in my house, it was just full of all these, particularly Russian and American agents. They're wearing suits, and they were all almost pinning me down. I could have got out, but it was a lot of effort. So for the 2 weeks while the G20 was happening in Brisbane, I was kind of being pinned to my house, and I just thought it was easier to let them go. Then I'll do my own thing when they've gone. So there are certain, clearly, anyone who's doing astral stuff on the internet would be known to these agencies, and that's not a mysterious thing. The remote viewing, the Russians and Americans have been doing, and other governments been doing for a while. So that's not particularly weird. But so you've got certain areas around, what's that alien area in America where you can see the craft, the moon, all these sort of places. But I'm writing a book at the moment with some stuff on the moon, which people will find interesting. So yeah, I will attempt to get to the Antarctic. Another question here from Kirsten, talking about decisions. Mine is deciding to take anti-anxiety meds. Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I know I work with a lot of people with my Reiki, with people who are on these sort of meds, and I've never taken them myself, but I do know that there is they do accrue in your system, and in the long run, they're not good. You just want to try to do whatever you can with the right advice to get off them. Is very true, because it does mess with your field. That's definitely a thing. That things get. Yeah, Area 51M. Yeah, g'day M. Yeah, Area 51 is a place. That's some place look. You do see. Look, the fact is, in the astral, when you're out, look up above you there are craft everywhere. There are so many spaceships. There are lots of stuff going on. We're being observed, and there are laws, there are rules. It's like a chess game. Um, it's good. It's fine. It's good, and everything's in our favor. But it's we're not the most evolved planet. Is what I've learned out there. And as I said earlier, one of the factors is that we do continue to have wars on the planet, which means we're seen as volatile. But funny thing, here's another experience. Once I was actually staying in Finland, and this is where a lot of my second book is set because I really like Scandinavia. I've been to, I haven't been to Iceland or Greenland, but I've been to a lot of the Scandinavian countries. When you astral travel there, it's very, very interesting beings you pick up. And I was once in a hotel in Helsinki, and I was kind of I kind of woke up and I was just kind of saying this mantra to these particular race of beings. And I was saying, yes, there are many of us, but we're actually not a violent species. I was kind of, what's the word? Kind of affirming to these beings that we do, because they tap into the field of humanity. I was just kind of, but this is just happening automatically. It was like a telepathic process where they connected with me, and what they do is they use certain humans as kind of like ambassadors. So they'd often take me up onto ships or places, and you telepathically talk, and generally you have no idea what they're saying, but they have an idea of what you're saying because we can't compute most levels of their conversation. It's pretty normal. So, and yeah, I was just kind of trying to suggest these beings that we're not as aggressive as we appear, which was an interesting. Bob Lazar, I've heard of Bob Lazar, but I can't remember much of him. I know is he. So I can't remember if you can tell me, Kazun, what about him? I know, is he a abductee, or I can't remember. I know he's something to do with aliens. But just fill me in. But look, you guys too. Let me know if there's any experiences you're having. Just thinking offhand. So I was just wanting to let you know the kind of experiences you have. Past life thing is a very cool one, and because I'm out there doing astral stuff, a lot of people have contacted me over the years, and having read my book and stuff, and they've said they've had similar experiences. They've seen past lives, and I didn't believe in past lives before. So I think, when you realize, past lives are a thing. Like, and I wasn't not into them. I think to be open minded is the most important thing. But to actually like have these past life kind of slideshows you have, what you're doing, I feel, you're integrating these other lifetimes. So that's part of the soul retrieval, is that you start to become more multidimensional, not just sliding into different dimensions, but even past lives. I mean, that's also multidimensional, because it's different timelines. Therefore, it's not in this dimension. So also future and past is a thing. Okay, Phil. Phil's my brother in arms. We're doing we do a live called Awakening Insider with Soul Reader, and we often get together and do stuff. And good to see you, Phil. Thanks for joining. Background, yeah, this was that. The background is that medieval inn I was talking about, where I met my guide. So we're just talking about the different kinds of experiences. And okay, Bob Lazar, jumping around a bit, but that's okay. Yeah, sure. Look, yeah, I've heard some stuff of his, and he sounds legit. And I think these people are. You've got to feel into what you reckon when you hear them. That's when you know. And Emma's saying hi, Phil, friend of Phil's. But these areas do have psychic protection around them, and there's something I will spend more time on. As I said before, if you get a group of people, I found in the astral, often I've gone out with groups of people to certain areas that would seem protected. So I think you can build like a vortex of energy, hence the Astral Vortex. But the more people that talk about this stuff, what we're doing is we're actually literally raising our vibration to these other dimensions. Before I forget, though, other experiences I've had relating different dimensional shifts are the future and the past. One I saw was I don't know when it will be, but I believe it was Melbourne. I was in Melbourne. I was around the port area, the Port Melbourne area, and I was seeing Melbourne under rocket attack from the ocean. So it was like, and I was just there witnessing Melbourne being in some kind of war. That was interesting. Not to be, you got to sit there and just be negative, just let it go on around you. Who knows whether that's real or whether that's a possible outline. Past, I've seen dinosaurs, things like this, which is interesting. You'll often pop up in cities. I remember once popping up in Vancouver. Never been to Vancouver before, but I popped up and I felt I was about 100 meters high or so. And I was looking at this incredible mountainscape and looking at certain buildings. And I felt Vancouver. And then very clear, the certain, and then I Googled it and I could see the skyline of Vancouver. Why would I pop up in Vancouver? No idea. But it just happens sometimes, it's kind of cool. Look, it's true, Nigel. So much being hidden from us. Yeah, love it. Yeah. And I think what you got to realize is, look, it's kind of okay, like not to be defensive. Like there is stuff hidden from us. That's a fact. And I remain to be what I would call, in the best sense, a naive kind of person. But I was once shown where there was this phenomenal level of fear around the earth. It was like I was blasting out of the earth again. There was like this. It was around the Van Halen belt, which is around the Earth's. It's in the Earth, not far out of the Earth's orbit. Anyway, well, it's actually in the Earth's orbit. And there was this phenomenal fear I felt when I hit it, right? And when I realized it wasn't my fear, it let me go. And it's interesting because that particular belt, I think, is seen as radioactive. So what does that represent? Radioactivity. So I hit this field. I feel this phenomenal fear. I think, oh, don't go on. I'm so scared. Then I realized it's not mine. And it was just kind of like a visceral relaxation. When I left that belt around, not far from the Earth, I was shown all these black helicopters and UFOs. And I was shown that certain humans, and this was years ago, this is 2012, and certain humans and certain non-humans have made agreements to keep humans in a certain level of fear, to keep things hidden from them. So if there's a certain level of fear being radiated always at humans, it's difficult for them to get above that. So, and it was really funny because the voice said, it's very cryptic in the astral, and the voice said, do not get bogged down in conspiracy. He said, Greg, do not get bogged down in conspiracy. So for the next year, I'm bogged down in conspiracy, which you have to be. And you have to, I looked at everything going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then you kind of get over the anger of it and you realize, okay, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense. And that's okay. We've got to look at how we can transcend that. And, it is a playground. Playgrounds have rules. When you went to kindergarten, funnily enough, my first day kindergarten, I went home after it and said, nah, not going. So I never went back to kindergarten. So I must have been a special little kid. And then I remember I just said, no, not going to happen. I think the kindergarten teacher was telling me stuff, some dynamic. I said, not going to happen. I just refused. So non-compliance was kind of a bit of a mantra of mine as a very young child, put it that way. And that was really funny. And then my mum, who happened to be a teacher at the time, this little school in country Victoria, she took me along, and I would sit at the front next to her. There was a little mini desk, and my mum was teaching. She was a classroom teacher. I think it was a grade 1 class. I'm just sitting there doing my own thing. I was out the front of the class with her, but in my own desk, just looking at the kids, going, yeah, what? So, so what I'm getting at is that humanity is a playground, and there are certain rules. Like if you go to school, you probably, I got the cane a couple of times for fighting, and wasn't that bad. I remember, when I knew I had to go and get it, I put a couple of pair of shorts on under my trousers so that it would lessen the blow a little bit. Still got a bit bruised, but That's the way it is. So it's okay. Um, so you learn to transcend that experience, is what I'm saying. So I feel more and more. I'm not good at cryptic anything. Cryptic, yeah. I think you get better. I think look with the astral things are kind of cryptic, but you just know, like you let it happen. You don't need to understand. Like I remember one voice I heard early on. It was my female guide, and she said to me, "Greg, this is I'm in the void." Greg, I said, "Yep." It was something like I've written in my book, but I can't remember the actual quote. But what injures more personally than those who are injured? What injures more personally than those who are injured? Like that is so cryptic. Plus, it's crap English to have the same word twice in a sentence. We're taught do not put the same word twice in a sentence. So the problem is we get caught up in semantics. Now, in the end, I can't remember what realization came from that, but it was kind of like so, I'd gotten into Reiki and all that kind of stuff. I guess I learned to be very detached when doing healing because I wasn't going to help the person by falling into their drama. So I guess I've learned not to fall into the human drama so much. So I still have to tackle human things, bills and things like this, which don't really appreciate. but but that seems to be not even going to say that that's the rules because I don't think they're the rules. I think we can transcend such things as bills ultimately. And I've been shown in the astral. I like one great experience in the astral, a beautiful thing. I was once in the astral, just in some random place, and I thought to myself, chocolate ice cream. And I had this cone of chocolate ice cream. I tasted this ice cream. To this day, I've come close, but not quite. I've not tasted ice cream as good. I have no idea, nor had any idea of the recipe. So, and what's funny enough, I read into this as well later on. Like when I used to be able to grow veggies back in Melbourne, had a better patch. I put the seeds, I had organic seeds. I put them under my tongue, so the seeds. I remember these tomato seeds would get to know my kind of pH, if you like. The tomatoes I grew, these cherry tomatoes, were the best tasting tomatoes I've ever tasted. So these tomatoes tuned in to me. And also when we lived in Spain, we were around near Valencia, and everybody had oranges, and we had these oranges in the back, and everybody sprayed the shit out of their veggies with and fruit with the pesticides. So the first year we didn't. We said we're not going to do it. And all the neighbours were looking at us thinking you're pretty weird. And the oranges were terrible. They didn't grow properly. They were all warped and they were crap. The next year, these oranges, I remember taking a photo. We had an orange that was like 2 kilograms. These oranges, like the neighbors are saying, you have the best oranges we've ever seen. So it took a year, or well, really 2 years for these oranges to adapt, not being sprayed with the pesticides and becoming like, they developed kind of a thicker skin, but were really juicy inside. So they developed this way of transcending that toxic culture. And I think as a person, it's a funny kind of analogy, but I think as humans, we learn to transcend what could be potentially seen as a toxic karmic kind of realm we're in. Kasun again. Do you think distance Reiki healing works? Absolutely, because I do a lot. I don't know about the Reiki Jiu-Jitsu. Look, they might. I generally do it person to person, and it does work because I've done it many times. I do it every week, actually, so often Zoom or person to person, but not. But that's an interesting question. I've never said, I'll try one. I'll try one of those. I didn't know you could do. One thing I'm starting up soon is a thing called, on that topic, is the thing called the Healing Project, where each week we're going to send like 10 minutes of healing. Anyone can do it, even a non-Reiki person, just to someone, and then we're going to get their response so we can actually get some kind of thing happening and some kind of, evidential kind of a situation, because I am absolutely, well, I'm not even amazed anymore at the the depth of healing that can come from distant healing, and because, as a being, we're clearly non-local, as I've found that out in the astral, and that did lead me doing Reiki and that kind of stuff. it isn't. We are living. We are non-local beings. We're everywhere. You can be everywhere. It's just a question of how much consciousness you can take there. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Reiki healing worked on those videos, but I will try one for sure. One thing before I go, I like to try these banners. Um, there's a thing that I've just got up recently. It's a live stream Zoom workshop I've got on May 4th, and that's something. Where's this thing? Oh yeah, I've also got this thing. I can do them both at once. Oh, how's that for tech? Guys, you're impressed, aren't you? But anyway, so if you go to my website, gregdoyleastral.com, you'll see that there's a link where you can book into the live stream. It's a 4-hour event, as you can see. And I'll help people personally. People, it's not anonymous. It's not like you just see me like this. It's different. It's an actual Zoom, like a webinarish kind of situation where I can see you on a screen and we can actually talk through astral stuff and where you can meditate as well. We can lie down. And the good thing is, like I just did a couple of weeks ago, I did an astral workshop here, but there's always someone who snores. This is when I had the physical workshops, which is okay. I'm always tugging their feet, but sometimes it's nice to do something where um, you can actually, and if there won't be snorers online. I mean, they could turn off their audio when they're meditating. It's not a bad idea actually. But there'll be actual floor exercises where you can lie down and my voice will be guiding you through stuff. So these online things are actually quite handy for this particular purpose because I can just reach people in different time zones as well, people that can't get to Brisbane, because Brisbane's becoming the astral travel hub of the identifiable world, it would seem, which is great. So yeah, so I do I suggest any of you to come to that if you can. When I say come to it, Zoom into it. And also, just to let you know, I do have my online course, which is very groovy. I'll just show you a little bit because I'm getting now. That's this one here. Huh? Oh yeah, sorry. So this is this one here. There you go. I'm sharing that, and you can see that there. I believe. Probably can't actually. Oh, there we go. Add a scene. Oh, perfect. So yeah, and here I've got I do suggest those courses. If you do come to the live stream workshop, you get this thing half price. And there's all this meditation is a really good one. You put on headphones on. It's got very deep frequencies, and it's been designed for astral travel. It was actually the music was put to my words, that into the void of creation. But if we go into the actual breakthrough course, what you can see here is just to show you, because a lot of people don't get to. There's a couple of preview vids you can look at as well, and there's all these. Yeah, it takes you through quite a bit of stuff. There's MP3s after each chapter as well. Like here's, I'm not going to get into that, but you can just see there's like videos and stuff that just explain stuff to you. I won't. Oh, that does work. Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty cool. I'm getting out of there now, and go away. That's better. So what I found is like just talking on these themes and doing anything you can, like courses, reading books. That's why I've got a book out as well. That can help you. Like I once had got a good fallout. Didn't once have. I still got this friend back in Melbourne who was a lawyer, who was an ex-musician, and he when he read my book, he said to me, Greg, are you telling the truth there? Because I wrote a book about my astral experiences, and I said absolutely. So he bought the book, and then the day after he bought the book, he wrote to me to say, I can't believe it. That night I had an out of body experience. He's never had one before. So reading anyone's book on the subject is going to have codes. See, when for instance, when I write my book on astral travel, or when we're talking about this stuff now, there's a certain thing called entrainment where your brain is operating at certain frequencies, and the codes going into that book. This book, that's my book on the there you go. It's going astral on you as you speak. But you can see it on my website. But there are certain codes that go in. So what I'm thinking when I'm writing that book, there are certain frequencies within that book. And a testament to that kind of frequency thing. Once I was reading a book called The Reconnection, which is another healing modality. After I'd read the book, the next time I was doing Reiki, I felt these frequent, like I couldn't go near a person's body for a while. I had to stay above because the frequencies were so strong. So, and what I read was that guy had said too, look, just the reading of the book, you get this transmission. So just being here and watching this video back, there are certain transmissions going on. And that's what I want to do today's episode was just like, it's not all freaky astral wacko kind of stuff going on. It's often very, as the background suggests, it's often very kind of cozy vibe, And I remember that those guides. I remember the last experience with the guides that night, that same night. I was in this beautiful field. The sun was setting, and the female guide was showing me auras and all this kind of stuff. And this was before I got into Reiki, but I was shown the chakra system, which I didn't believe in. I did not believe in, but it wasn't on my radar belt. And it was just so, like, just the scenes itself have been etched into memory banks that are so much more vivid and real. Like when I call up these memories, it's like I can see it like it's happening now. Whereas if I call up a mortal memory, it's not as clear. So that's why these scenes of absolute beauty. Like just think of the most beautiful sunset you've ever seen, and how and how those scenes. I remember once I was hiking up in the high country in Victoria, and it was a really clear day, and I was up around, quite high up around Kosciuszko. Really clear day, and we looked down and we could see. I remember we could see Bass Strait. We could see over all of Victoria, which is a sizable state. We could see over all of Victoria into Bass Strait. I'll never forget it. It was just like for a few fleeting moments, and then it was never that clear again, not that clear. Even that memory is not etched into such a strong memory as my astral experiences. So those astral experiences, you can't get away from. As I said, it literally hijacked my life for the better. Like I can't not be involved in this stuff. I can't not jump up and down and scream from the rooftops about, well, or sit in front of the computer and talk about this stuff because it's just so cool. In a nutshell, it's just so cool. Okay, I'm just looking at a few more comments here. Yep. Good night from you. Yeah, good night, Emma. And who knows? You might go astral. Who knows what happens? Oh, hi, Bridget. Good to see you here. And Bridget's got something. I just got your book. Oh, you're gonna love it. Yeah, I say you're gonna love it because so many people tell me it's not boring. And my biggest fear was, is it boring? And people said they couldn't put it down. So that's just based on what people have said, not me. I can put it down because it's my book. But yeah, you'll love it. And as I said, the book will have certain codes in it. Well, listen, guys, I'm going to sign off. You can look back at this vid. As I said, I've got this, for those who think they want to come to the physical workshops, but they can't. The online workshops are really nice. I've done live stream ones before, and they're just a really different kind of vibe, very quiet vibe, but kind of nice as well. And it does translate through the screen because we are non-local beings, as we were talking about with Reiki. You can send it across, and I do that all the time, and I actually love it because when you do a non-physical healing, it's kind of a bit more interdimensional. So it's a different kind of thing. So lovely to see you all. I've enjoyed tonight, and I might even do a follow-up of this next week. He got something else here. Group chat. Oh, fair enough. I put it up on the links, Vencio, and we'll see. Okay, just got to figure out the Discords. Yep, whack it up in the YouTube comments, and people can see it there. So if anyone wants to share anything, just share it in your comments. Okay. Thanks, Manny. Thanks, Em. Yeah, it's funny, entertaining because today I got a bit of a headache. I never get headaches the last 2 days, so I just feel there's something going on. I'm not that I feel bored or in a boring mood, but I just sort of thought, I feel a bit weird today, and I tend to go with the flow when it's like that. There's generally something going on, and also Yoshi, our little dog, is my litmus test. If he's looking a bit weird in the eyes, I know it's not just me. Plus, I saw a few weird things in the sky today. Let's not get into that, shall we? Lovely to see you all. And as I say, if there's any comments, I'll even put in the comments in the YouTube. Probably in the YouTube, I'll put comments. I think more people are on YouTube. I think. Can I see that? I don't know if I can see from here. I don't know, probably. Oh yeah, if I press M's thing, I can see it's on YouTube. No, oh, Facebook. That's Facebook. And just looking back at, oh yeah, I should look at where people are YouTube. Yeah, just looking for my own interest. Yeah, I'll probably so YouTube comments. I'll also put links to these courses and stuff there. But I'll do another one next week where we just look at a few of the experiences, because often we're talking in the astral about how to get there. You know, how you actually go astral, and so often we put the cart before the horse. What I mean by that is, we're all going astral anyway. So often just talking about astral experiences can actually bring about an astral experience. So it's kind of like a reverse engineering experience. And the reason I started to cut before the horse is that when I get a lot of this into my second book, I'm writing a fiction book at the moment, not like Astral Adventures. But I found more and more, I just let the words come. Like, what I mean by that is, in the astral, you only telepathize. You don't know what you're going to say; it just comes out of you. So, whereas we do shunt, um, the verbal thing around a lot in the physical, and look at politics. Look where that's got us. So, I have the feeling that you've got to. What's to know is that the experience is in your field. It's not something that is absolutely a stranger to you. So to know that these experiences can draw you, the experiences can draw you to them. Yeah, I don't have a Discord. I don't think I have one, Vencio. So I'll look into that. I know Phil, you mentioned something about Discord, so I might get into that. I'll let you know. I'll have to look into that. But so know that just by talking about these experiences, because they are often common experiences, like we do meet our guides in the astral. So just by talking about that, it's giving your subconscious kind of some kind of subconscious acknowledgement or allowance to allow you to take you there. So it's good to constantly tell your guides, yeah, I want to go. This is good. I want to have an astral experience, and just to talk about it, I find is really good. That's why I'll try to keep these up. Anyway, guys, great to see you. Look forward to seeing you next. Glad you appreciate the background. I don't even have a green screen, but that's okay. There's a bit of, I don't know, I kind of like it like that. I'll see you next time, guys, and always lovely to see you all and lovely to share this stuff. Okay, have a great week. Where are we now? Wednesday. Have a great rest of week. I'll see you next week. No, I won't. I'm in Adelaide. I might do it on the Tuesday night, or I'll see you the week after. I might even do it on the Tuesday next week. So, yeah, I'll try to get one out Tuesday night. Okay, guys, have a good week anyway. See you.